Hello, you amazing friends and followers. Before I start this recording, please excuse the bird noises. I can't stop them squawking and squeaking and carrying on. So unfortunately, you're going to have to put up with any messages that they may try to bring through. So greetings for 2023. This is my first video and newsletter for this year. And I'd like to think that I'm refreshed and rejuvenated after nearly 2 months away from home. The music and the running water of the Buckland River is very soothing to the soul. And I spent time just sitting next to the river and absorbing the energy, allowing the running water to take away what no longer serves me. So now I'm back home, and we have this new moon in Pisces occurring late in the afternoon on Monday the 20th. That is today for me, Melbourne time. And do adjust for your geographical location. This is the fourth of the new moons in 1 degree of the sign, this time Pisces. The universe is pointing us to new beginnings. Are you listening? Can you hear? Can you see? And in addition to these new moons in 1 degree, we have new energy from the outer planets. We have Pluto moving into Aquarius after being in Capricorn since November 2008. And Saturn is moving into Pisces after nearly 3 years in Aquarius. And these are two major planetary energies changing signs and changing qualities. And the world will notice the impact, and so will you. The last few years have featured top-down control at so many levels. We had the bitter taste of that control, particularly over the last 2.5 years. The people are tired of this disempowerment and will be flexing their influence this year. Pluto is moving from Capricorn and the old grey-haired brigade into Aquarius, the new galactic energy and the energy of the people. Consider that in 1779, when Pluto last moved into Aquarius, remember it had a very long cycle, the French deposed their monarchy. And this led to a much more equitable deal for the people, Aquarius. This change occurred in just a few days, although it had been building for some time. But its influence has been felt ever since. So what can we expect to happen in our societies? Pluto changes signs from the 24th of March for 6 weeks until the 11th of June. And no doubt I'll talk about that in my next newsletter as well. We will have a taste of what it will come when he next moves into Aquarius in January 2024. Now, Saturn, rules and regulations, changes on the 7th of March and moves into Pisces for around 2 to 3 years. This energy, this Pisces energy, is connected to dreamy creativity, unconditional love, films, the media, illusions of all sorts, drugs, pharmaceuticals, alcohol. Observe the potential trend to discipline some of those aspects of our lives. We have medical systems, educational systems, and legal systems that are broken and in need of change. Those who have wielded their top-down power are now being challenged on so many fronts. And we can expect a different version of the events over the last few years to come to light, as well as new and innovative ideas to address many areas of our existence. This new moon is very close to the Earth physically, and so we can expect seismic shifts, both literally and in our consciousness. And as I write this, the world is dealing with the aftermath of huge earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, as well as New Zealand and the Philippines. So a new episode in our lives is being ushered in by this new moon, and especially noticeable in its house position in our individual charts. So check where it falls for you to help you place some conscious energy around that sector of your life. Remember that our energy and personal authority come from within, not from out there. Our energy source is not outside of us in the person of a teacher, a doctor, a minister, or anybody else. Our energy source is within us. And we can attract the energy we emanate from within ourselves. So, what sort of energy are you attracting? WHO and your sovereignty. What am I talking about? WHO, the World Health Organization. If you have done your research over the last few years, it's evident that there are factions within that organization that do not favor our best health. Africa seems to be awake. Why are we not alert to their WHO intentions? There are current proposed amendments to the WHO membership and international health regulations that we as a people need to know about. Now, your friendly mainstream media is unlikely to give this topic very much air. So please check out australiaexitsthewho.com, and I'll put that reference in the notes to learn more. I understand that the proposed amendments to the International Health Regulations, IHR, has the potential to impact all Australians and other member states of the WHO. Adoption of those amendments to the IHR allows the WHO, by a simple majority of its member states, to make those amendments legally binding on member states, including Australia. How do you think that impacts the sovereignty of every Australian? Do you want your sovereignty to erode, to be further eroded? Do you want to be directed in your life by entities outside of our country? Really? Now, Pluto is moving into Aquarius, and I don't expect this will happen, but while Pluto in Aquarius is activated by us, the people, we still have to act. So I recommend you check out that website that I referred to and make the necessary activities, do the necessary activities to help have your voice heard. Now, I've chatted before about independent food supply, because there are those who would control what we eat. You hear rumors about them withdrawing supply of meat, so we eat insects. Does that appeal to you? You know, when I left home just before Christmas, my little garden was still producing tomatoes and beans, as well as a variety of herbs. And since I live in a closed community, I encouraged my neighbours to water the garden and help themselves to whatever produce appeared. It was marvellous to return home and find so much of my garden alive and well. I mean, it's only a tiny little garden. But of course, it now needs significant attention in autumn planting, and it's an ideal time to plant new seeds at the new moon. I'll probably be doing that tomorrow, Wednesday. So I encourage folk to grow their own food if they can. You can't grow everything, obviously, but choose things you can grow easily and that add spice to your diet. As in, when I say spice, I mean interesting things to your diet. We are facing turbulent times, and having a small, reliable source of food for ourselves is quite a good plan. Did you know that in some parts of southern Australian states, due to recent floods, there are no potatoes to feed the chip factories? Oh, fancy having no chips. Wow. While wandering in the Melbourne Central Business District a few weeks ago, I was delighted to see numerous large pots overflowing with produce in the middle of Swanston Street. The pots were about 1 metre in diameter and featured a variety of healthy leafy greens, herbs, peas, beans, flowers, and so on. I don't know the beneficiaries of that produce, but the fact that bountiful food can be grown in the midst of a capital city suggests that we can all find a square metre around our homes in which to grow something that will something that will provide us with some independence for our food supply. What do you think? you growing something to eat around your place? Let me know. As an aside, the thing I missed most about being away from home was my supply of fresh herbs. Because fresh herbs, it's $2.50 for a bunch of this and $3 for a bunch of that. And you can't use them all at once and they don't keep. So I was very grateful to be back home to my fresh herb supply. Just a little pinch of this and a handful of that. It's really good. Now, what about your power supply? I've just had a Charlie on the phone wanting to talk to me about the cost of energy and power. And I've put him off, so maybe he can talk to me tomorrow. And so I wanted to tell you that when I was in Victoria, friends in country Victoria were explaining to me how they are part of a community power hub. What a good idea. Those involved, both domestic and business entities, contribute solar power or renewable power to their hub. Many of them have battery backup to smooth their own power supply requirements. And the notion is that as much power as possible is drawn from renewable solar and wind, but they're still connected to, the grid. Because I think it's proven that renewables cannot possibly provide the amount of power we all need in this modern electrified world. It is an interesting experimental project, this one, and it seems to be gaining legs, but it has also had significant funding to set it up and encourage it. I do question how sustainable the supply arrangement can be in the longer term. The community have already instituted an entity to manage the supply and distribution of power in that region. And inverted commas from their website, as a certified social enterprise, we've committed to returning 50% of our profits to clean energy and community projects in our towns. And now on just a slightly different slant, according to information presented to me on Sunday evening, Australia does not have sufficient power supply for its projected needs. Renewables, despite being favoured by environmentalists, are not the complete answer. As yet, it's not economically viable, unfortunately. With Uranus, technology and inventiveness in Taurus, it would not surprise me to learn that there are already some solutions being sought to recycle solar panels, which are currently non-biodegradable. Did you know that? I've watched Foster Gamble on Thrive 1 and Thrive 2 explain that there are power systems available to us, free energy systems, but these are being held back because they don't generate profit for everybody. Surprise, surprise. These systems are potentially a threat to that existing regime. So, do we think that Uranus in Taurus will really deliver an alternative energy source? Pluto in Aquarius does encourage community activities, and also it's a very Aquarian thing to do in the age of Aquarius. So both the gardening and power distribution topics I just discussed can be incorporated into community activities. Pluto into Aquarius is encouraging us all to work together to provide viable solutions to everyday living. And it's not easy sometimes being in a group. There's often one person who's grumpy or uncooperative or just plain friggin' difficult. Does this give us individual opportunity to grow our tolerance? Does it give us the opportunity to develop new understandings of folk who see life through a different lens? Can we find ways to work together for a better outcome for the whole community? Growing food for ourselves and to share encourages others to do the same. By consultation, we could all agree to grow different foods and then barter to meet everybody's needs. You grow the carrots and I'll grow the corn and you'll grow the peas and someone else will grow the pumpkin, and then we'll swap around so we all have something. And managing power resources seems a great idea, especially if the notional profits from the activities are recycled into community projects. Again, this is very Aquarian type activity. What other community activities can we initiate? Do you think that's a good idea? What else can you think if we could do? Now, the crumbling of the old. I spoke about planets changing signs, and the following comments reflect the planetary influence of both Pluto and Saturn. Dr. William Bay, a Queensland doctor, currently struck off the register, is in the Supreme Court of Queensland next month, challenging many of the restrictive measures imposed upon the medical profession and the people. I watch with anticipation the outcome of this action, which potentially has very wide implications for so many people, not just the doctors. So check out Dr. Bay versus APRA and the Medical Board of Australia in the state of Queensland, 23rd and 24th of March, Supreme Court in Brisbane. Interesting that the date of the hearing is just after the new moon in Aries and with Saturn just into Pisces. Oh, I'm optimistic that there will be a positive outcome, despite Pluto still hanging on in there in Capricorn. Now, there was a letter circulated a few weeks ago by the Australian Medical Professional Society, AMPS, indicating that there had been no legislation enacted that protected doctors from adverse outcomes relating to administering the jabs, and indicating that they may be liable for jabs injuries. Really? At the same time, the letter also pointed out that doctors were being constrained by APRA in their administration of the jabs. They were only allowed to say to their patient that the jab was safe and effective, no matter what they themselves believed or what their Hippocratic oath and professional opinion. I feel sorry for the doctors. No matter what they did, they're in a no-win situation. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I found it quite interesting that Del BigTree on thehighwire.com has a copy of this letter, and he's discussing it. So check out thehighwire.com, episode 304, starting at around 47 minutes. And I think we'll see more activity on this front. Again, I don't think the friendly MSM will cover much of it. So look to your alternative channels for information. Now, I usually have an inspirational story. And yes, I have one of those this time as well. Last time I wrote about the amazing Anne, who had relocated countries after 8 decades and is creating a new life for herself in country New South Wales. On my northbound trip, coming home, I visited her again. And this time her circumstances have changed significantly for the better. On the last visit, she was occupying quite a nice space at the back of a big house. But to access her place, she had to climb on a stool and reach over the gate to release the latch. Now, this is not okay for anyone, never mind an elderly person. And despite making the best of her situation, she's got a fabulous attitude to life. She sought to change these conditions and asked the landlord whether he would adjust the access, which he refused. So she sought help from a local property manager. She was eventually matched with a man who wanted someone to share his house. Now, for an octogenarian lady, it's challenging to consider sharing with a man to whom she's not related. The rent he sought was more than she could comfortably afford, so she asked him if he would accept a lesser rent if she cleaned his house. And she's an awesome cleaner. He accepted the proposition, and despite many misgivings, she appears to be very happy with the arrangement. I was so pleased to see her glowing with happy energy. Anne is an inspiration. How many octogenarians will change countries and seek new adventures? And she's being rewarded with amazing adventures and new experiences, all of which work to keep her young and vibrant at many levels. it helps that she's always followed a sensible dietary regime. You know, like my late centenarian aunt, Anne eats lots of fruit and vegetables and a very basic diet. Are you inspired? And lastly, I'll talk about the physical aspects of Pisces, of the moon in Pisces, and it's about feet and hands. Have you had a manicure recently? I could do with another one soon. What about podiatry attention to move those hard bits, the corns, the bunions, etc.? Or even better, reflexology works on your feet, which correspond with various other parts of the body to keep them healthy and well. I love going to see Susie, my reflexology genius. Got an appointment to see her later in the week. So take care of your hands and your feet. Walk lightly on the earth, the sand, the grass, and connect with your feet. Have a beautiful month in Pisces. Set some Piscean new intentions, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.